So by the Binyan HaMishkan, it says, "V'lachshav machshavas lasis bezov bekesev v'nechoishes," that they had special thoughts when they created the Mishkan. The main thing that made the Mishkan effective was that the people who were building it understood what they were doing, and therefore they could create energies within the solids that had a special effect on people, that had a special presence. And so every avodah was done specifically by somebody who has a connection to that avodah, by somebody who understands how to express their innermost feelings, their innermost understanding of life in those specific works, in those specific manifestations. And so the main one was called Betzalel. Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur Lamata Yehuda was the one in charge of building the Mishkan. So Moshe Rabbeinu would tell him the instructions and he would carry them out. And Betzalel was very, very wise. Betzalel represented the koyach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as it's manifesting in nature. He was like not even present when he was doing his work. He would disappear in the work. The work would do itself. And this is like we know all the time in the Mishkan. The Aron, for example, noises, of those who carry the Aron, they're not exerting any effort, they're not doing anything. It's just happening to them. Because the energy of the Aron was of such a nature that it would communicate with the bodies of the people carrying it directly. The people carrying it would be motivated to such a degree that they wouldn't feel that they're doing it. They would feel like there's the same force that's giving them the ability to perceive what's happening is also making the actual action happen. And so, that Betzalel knew how to combine the letters, that with these letters was created heaven and earth. So the letters that we're talking about are the Aleph Beis. The Aleph Beis from Lashon HaKodesh. So they're not simple Aleph Beis. They're not just Aleph Beis that people came up with by inspecting the sounds of the mouth. These Aleph Beis relate to energies that create. And they go back to the astrological knowledge that was known in ancient times. And this is brought in Sefer Yetzira, the letters and how they correlate with the mazoles and with the kochovim. And these forces are involved in creation. So Betzalel understood all these forces. He knew how these forces come together in order to create the consciousness of man. And this is what the Mishkan was supposed to represent. The Mishkan was supposed to represent how can something spiritual, something that's so subtle, so deep, so infinite, dwell in something so pronounced, so physical, so limited. And so the Mishkan was the same representation, to give an external manifestation of how does something spiritual, which is the energy that was present in the Mishkan, that was mamish, there was a miraculous energy over there, to be able to dwell in physical things, and things that were made from gold, from silver, from copper, and from wood. And so this is the Meleches HaMishkan, that it has in it a message, an understanding of how these two things, these two forces can come together. How do they combine? How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu take an infinite perception that could be anything and close it in to be specifically human consciousness? And the work of doing that involves limbs and organs. And the limbs and organs represent those letters that created the Maaseh Bereshis. So the infinite consciousness that expands to everywhere is now residing within a body where it can't be everywhere and everything because it has limitations. What are the limitations? The limitations are the organs and how it must supply for them. And so when we interact with life, the organs get woken up based on the stories that are taking place and the stories that we're telling ourselves to explain the stories that are taking place. And then we have an interaction live of all the letters that were involved in Maaseh Bereshis. So when somebody can understand that language, somebody can understand what's going on in the internal dialogue, what's causing his experience to be the way that it is, then he goes back to understanding how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created life with the 32 forces, which are called the Lamed Beis Nesivos HaChochma. So he says, in order to understand this, we need a very wide explanation. V'akatzer, I won't get into the details. V'chocham yaskel v'yoven. Somebody who is wise will be able to understand from himself what he's trying to say. So he says, Ki bihibaram oisius ba'avram. That it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created life, and the word that the Torah uses for creation is behibaram. And behibaram is the same letters as Avram. So from there we learn that it's the energy of Avram. Avram represents an energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And every personality in the Torah represents a certain energy, a certain interaction with life, a certain way of looking at life and dealing with life that's specific to that individual contributed to society, to humanity, to the way that we think and feel. And so Avram represents something very specific. He was the first person that went out there into the world and said he wants to make the world a better place. Simply for that sake. That was alone a good goal for him. That alone was a purpose for which he was willing to sacrifice his life. Because he realized that the world is not living up to its potential. He went and he was choker to understand the origins of what we're doing here and what we're trying to accomplish. And he came to a conclusion that we're coming up short. We're not doing it right. And so he wanted to spend his life and all the force that he has, all the power that he has, to tilt the trajectory of human evolution so that it should look different. And what do we call that midah? What was he trying to use in order to gain this change? The midah of chesed, the midah of kindness. So that's what he represents. So that's what it says, Olam chesed yibana. The world can only be built from kindness. Because a proper world where we can all have what we really need can only happen when all of us care so much that we want to do what it takes for the people around us to have that experience. And that requires a certain effort and certain energy from us to get that started. So that's a midas chesed. We can only build the world, we can only build an appropriate interaction when there's a desire to be kind. And therefore it says that b'chesed nivra olam, k'mashenem olam chesed yibana. V'zeh klal godel. Says, we know that everything that gets created with letters. And this is happening right now. As I'm creating with letters. Which means, right now, I'm in the middle of building the world. Right? And this is why Talmidei Chachamim are called boinim, right? It says, that they're building the world. They're called boinei olam. How did they build the world? With letters and words. By saying the letters and the words, we create realities within the mind, and this creates energy and it creates behavior. And so the words, as we say them, which words are going to build the world appropriately, which words are going to build worlds where people can actually live and it doesn't crumble upon them as they try to live in them, those are worlds that are built with letters and words that create chesed. When the letters and the words come together and the intelligence that comes through is chesed, then that juice will fuel the world will become better, the world will become more powerful. And when the letters and the words come together, and the fuel, the intelligence that's driving those words is fear, so then the world goes down. The world becomes a little more crumbled, a little more fractured, a little more separated. And so this is what he's saying, that everything in the world gets created with letters, just like originally HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it with these energies, which are the forces that created the zodiac, and they created our organs. Nimtza, or Yetzira voices b'chesed. So when the world gets created, it has to be created with chesed. Otherwise, it can't have a kiyum, it can't stay. HaKadosh Baruch Hu renews every single day the original creation, which means that right now, for example, as we're experiencing a moment in time, we're really experiencing something that came absolutely out of nothing. And this is something that science is catching up on now. In the past, it would sound a little strange to say that. Matter is coming out of nothing every single moment. Why would anybody do that? It doesn't sound efficient. Why not just create it and let it be? But if we look at the quantum level, we see that energies are constantly moving in order to create the appearance of matter. Which means that if the energy stopped moving for even a split second, then everything disappears like it never was. So there's a will in there that's keeping these energies running in order for every single cell to continue existing. And this happens about 86 trillion times in each one of us. And so that movement is always happening. Like the pasuk says, "Lo'elam Hashem devar chanitzav b'shamayim," that the Shemaim doesn't just stand because it was there yesterday. The Shemaim stands because he wants it to be there today, and even now. And the moment there would be no desire, then it would just disappear like it never was. There would be nobody to even ask, hey, what just happened? And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mechadesh B'chol Yom Tomid Maaseh Bereshis. It brings it out from nothingness into reality. How did he create originally the world? He couldn't have done it in order to give anybody reward. There was nobody there to reward. He created it because he wanted to share from his very own will, from his very own desire. That's how he desired to share, and so he went out and did it. And so the same way he did that back then, the same way he's doing it now, there is mechadesh betuvai b'cholim tov maaseh bereshis. Not with your tov that you're doing. That's not what's mechadesh maaseh bereshis. If it was dependent on that, we'd be in a lot of trouble, or we wouldn't be in a lot of trouble. We'd be gone. And so he's mechadesh betivo b'cholim tov maaseh bereshis. Why? Because he loves us. We don't love ourselves. Okay, maybe one day they'll figure it out. And so he gives us constantly new juice so that we can be again and try again to understand what's really happening. It's like the pasuk says, "L'regoim tivchonenu." You test him to the moments, to the split seconds. Every split second there's a rotza v'shoif. There's an attempt of a deeper level of energy, of a deeper intelligence to try to come into our bodies, and so that we can experience a higher understanding. And then when it sees the situation, it just doesn't materialize. And this happens constantly because we're always trying to heal. Our spirit is trying to heal. What we're getting is not really the full experience. So as it's trying to heal, it means that in every split second, it's trying to become something more. And our conditions are not allowing. If our conditions allow, then immediately we become something more. And this has all to do with the vessel. What comes from beyond, the one who's mechadesh b'tivo b'cholim tov maaseh bereshis, he gives us the full potential to each one of us. He doesn't limit what we can have access to because of how we behave. He gives us full access all the time. But us, with our vessel, the reason there's reward and punishment is because we have a vessel. We have a limitation. So when we cause damage to our vessel, we cause damage to our organs, to our brain, to our habits in our brain. So then we don't have the vessel to receive more, so we can't receive more. So it makes an attempt, and it goes back. It can't happen yet. And this is every single moment, multiple times a moment. And so it's on us to create the vessels to receive what's already being given, and what he wants you to receive more than you want to receive it. And you will enjoy receiving more than you can imagine. Because you'll be you for the first time. You haven't even met yourself yet. You know, it's like a 3-year-old. Has he met himself? Most would say his brain is not yet big enough to meet himself. Well, a 30-year-old, he's even more busy. He doesn't even have time to meet himself. And so we need to meet ourselves, we need a specific form of development. We need our brains to have a certain way to pick up all the different energies that create us. And some of them we've developed, some of them we've overdeveloped, and some of them we haven't touched. And so these people, a person like Bezalel, he understood the underlying energies that are creating the experience. And so he could develop individually each specific part of his being so that he has the vessels to interact with whatever nature has to offer. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he brings out b'midas hachesed, the maaseh bereshis every single day. Imani gasalam b'midas hachesed k'bri rishoina. Nimtzu b'chol yom yitzir voices b'chesed. שעל ידי יוסי יסיים, הקדוש ברוך הוא מחדש הביע. בדרך מושל, כשהקדוש ברוך הוא משפיע אז מאזן פרנסה, הקדוש ברוך הוא wants to give parnasa, to give sustenance to the creatures, לכל בו אלם בחסד הגודל, נעשה ציר ואיסיס של פרנסה, של רפואה, של שולם. So he said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give us all the possible good that we can have, because that's what Midas HaChesed means. Midas HaChesed means that he has unconditional desire to give. And so unconditional desire to give means that as much as you can receive, you can have. This is like the pasuk says, Harchev picha v'amaleyu. Open your mouth wide and I'll fill it up. And it doesn't mean Harchev picha, open your mouth like you're going to get fed food. But it means Harchev picha, that allow your words, your understandings, your concepts to become bigger so that you can receive more. Allow yourself to evolve and to see life from bigger perspectives, from a wider range of view, so that you can understand better what you really need, so you can make it more. So that's what it means. Harchev picha v'amaleyu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can give you, if you can imagine it, then at least in your mind you can be it. To the extent that you can imagine something, you can be it. And when it comes to spiritual things, this means getting closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like even HaKadosh Baruch Hu itself, it says if somebody were to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu like HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows himself, then he would be HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because that's the definition. He is the thing that is what it knows. And so when somebody gets to such a place, like Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go and to be in that place where he can know from within, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, if you're going to know like that, then you're going to leave your body. You're not going to be able to experience it, because the world hasn't been refined to such a place where our bodies can handle it. The energy here is so dense that if he were to see it from that perspective, he wouldn't want to be here. He wouldn't be able to exist over here. And so when we get closer to that knowledge, then we can know what there is to know. And if we can know, then we can be. It's instantaneous. What we know, spiritually, we are. Like the Baal Shem Tov says, V'mokem shemachshavte shel adam shamhu. And this is also visible physically, that if we want to be in any of our limbs, all we have to do is direct our attention. If we direct our attention to our toes, then our spirit goes to our toes. And then we can move our toes, we can wiggle our toes, but the attention is there, we're there. So the same way spiritually, in the world of thought, if we can direct our attention at any concept, at any place, then we can instantaneously be there. So the Torah is here to teach us places where we can direct our attention that are not available to somebody who doesn't know that he can direct his attention there. And when we direct our attention there, we have access to places and to things that people usually don't know they can have access to. And this is the concept of the spiritual world. The spiritual world means to have movement, direct conscious movement, within the world of thought, within the Olam HaMachshava. Because within the Olam HaMachshava is the collective Machshava that decides what's going to happen tomorrow. And so when a person learns how to direct his attention appropriately in the world of thought, then a whole new realm of existence opens up to him. Satisfaction can come from within. Satisfaction doesn't anymore have to come in through the senses. And this is key. This is what man lost when he left Gan Eden, and this is what man has to find to go back into Gan Eden, is that his satisfaction cannot come from the senses. The senses have to be a bonus. If the satisfaction comes from the senses, then we're always going to be running and we're never going to be able to rest. We're always not going to know where the next fix is going to come from. And in the world that we're in, that's not a happy place to be in, because nobody's providing. So it means you're going to have to continue struggling. It's not like we're living in the times in the Zman HaBayis, where you had kings that were serviced, so they can have expectations. Today, any expectation is going to take away our peace. And so this is the difference between why in the Zman HaBayis having good things, eating, drinking, was a positive. The pasuk is happy to describe Klal Yisrael in that situation. Oichlim v'shoisim v'smechem, they're having a good time, it was fine. But when in exile, it becomes a challenge, because things are not easily available. And so we have to first be able to receive our sustenance from within in order to be properly able to enjoy what we have externally, to even know how to appreciate it, to understand its meaning, its significance, its importance. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give us all these things, and it comes through the tziruf hayosis that come out bechesed. V'hakol b'koach hashashum shel tzedukah sheyesh ba'olam. What motivates HaKadosh Baruch Hu to continue doing kindness beyond what really we should receive is the amount of kindness that we wake up. When we give tzedakah, when we take care of other people, when we are involved in the destiny of man, in the collective, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the collective, becomes so overtaken with emotion that he's looking for a place where he can do good to humanity. Because this awakening of a midah goes all the way up to the Kisei HaKavod. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol dresses in that awakening. He dresses in that midah. And through that midah comes in good things to the world. And so these shashum that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, this is what brings new ashpos to the world. So tzaddikim, they have access to the letters that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to bring on the world. And they make sure that the letters should come out to words that create chesed. And this is exactly how tzaddikim can turn over midas adin to midas rachamim. They can find a statement that seems to be saying something negative that can cause damage to man, but the way that they'll say it and the way that they'll interpret it will suddenly create kindness for man, will become gentle for man. And this is the key of how tzaddikim interact with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that they let him have his way, but they make sure that it becomes good, that everything somehow leads to the good. Everything becomes a kisei to bring more and more good to the world. So they're mahapach the midas adin to midas rachmim. And when people see the midas rachmim in the world, this brings them closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This unites the world. This brings us closer to the yichud. It's the opposite way. Mahapchin. It's like when somebody doesn't know who he's learning for, and he doesn't understand what's involved, who are the sides. So he's reading a pasuk, he's reading a halacha, he's reading something, and he just interprets it in such a way that it becomes really painful. He didn't have to do that. But he doesn't have that sensitivity. He doesn't realize how to give it over. You can give over the exact same instruction and not cause damage to the nervous system while it goes in. And so this is something that the tzaddik will be aware of, and therefore he'll be careful how he says it in order to make sure that it goes in appropriately. And somebody who doesn't have that sensitivity, he can be mahapich the midas harachmim to midas adin. That even when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us in the Torah something that's supposed to give us chizik, that's supposed to sound nice to us, that's supposed to calm us down, the way that he says it, it's not going to calm us down at all. And so this is mahapich the midas harachmim to midas adin. So v'nas in tziruf machayrim. So behepech zayin atoyves anal. Can it's going to say Yetzira. But tzaddikim mahapchem shi yetziruf hamoyre l'shiva atoyves. Tzaddikim always bring it back that it should show all 7 goods. The 7 goods are the 7 basic needs that a human being has. I don't know if I remember all of them, but it's life, children, parnasa, friends, possessions. I don't even know which one I'm up to, but yeah, all these different things. Yeah, these are all part of possessions, I think. But all these different things, they come based on the mazalas. They come based on how much do we have of the intelligence that gives these things. And so each one of us has different intelligences that they have access to that can help them acquire things. Some people, for example, health-wise, they're very conscious and they're very aware and it works for them. But then it comes to money and they have no idea what they're doing. So this is lacking in intelligence. This has to do with the mazel of how were your organs created, which different energies went in, and how did they, what was their condition while you were being created. And all this creates a human being that has different strengths and different weaknesses. And then it depends on society and how we live life to see what kind of strengths are going to be rewarded and what kind of weaknesses are really going to cause the most suffering. But all these things, they come from our intelligences. You know, how much do we know on the subject and how accurate is what we know? How much do we really have a healthy and confident view of this area of life. And that gives it health, that gives it power. And the areas we don't have, that's where we have weaknesses. So the more there's midas harachman, the more there's midas hachesed in a society or in an individual, that will compensate even for weaknesses, because that will allow for different paths to develop. But midas hadin will shut down everything, will cause shortage, will cause problems, will cause strife. וצדיקים מהפכם, כמו שבייס הברית צירוף של חסד. וזה ידוע בצלאל, לצרף אויסיס. What was Bezalel's koyach? Hainu lahavi atzirah b'oisis k'mo shoy b'eis habriyah, that he could bring it back to the original settings, like it was when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created life, when it was completely chesed, when there were no conditions. The hainu tziruf ha'chesed. V'zenei shenivru shemayim v'oretz v'hovein zeh ma'oid. That this is what is required for creating a mishkan. In order for a person to create a mishkan, he really needs to understand the underlying forces that create his experience. Otherwise, we can have forces that are opposing to Kedusha, are opposing to what we're trying to accomplish. And while we're building our Mishkan, while we're trying to advance, they come in and they disturb our work. And so only when a person can go back to being the original him, the him that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, Berachma v'Avrov Chasodov, before people came and interacted with his mind and caused it to become a little more hostile, a little more aggressive. So if he can go back to the original settings, then he can make a Shechina for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. Then through him can HaKadosh Baruch Hu realize his vision. And this was the purpose of the Mishkan, to give Eidus and to bring witness to us to know that this is even possible. That this tradition shouldn't get lost from the world, where people say, you know, this is our condition, this is how we have to be. It was always like this, and everybody always suffered, and there's nothing you could do about it, and just learn to live with it. And so the Torah comes and says, no, that's not true. It wasn't always like this for everybody. In fact, people had beautiful experiences. People had very deep interactions with life and with the collective that created life. But we have lost access. And that's on us to find our way out so that we can create the Shekhinah for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And through that, we'll be able to build the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi b'meher b'yameinu.
Amen.
You mentioned that we have basically unlimited capacity, right?
Potential.
Right.
Yeah.
And HaKadosh Baruch Hu equally gives us all unlimited amount of pranasa, resources, etc.
He gives us unlimited amount of energy, and with that you can create whatever you want.
Okay. So, what about people who seem to have a certain profession? They're limited to how much money they're going to make. They're never going to make really that much more because that's the profession that they're in. Or someone, for example, has a certain intellect. They're never going to really be smarter because that's their IQ level.
So there's a big difference between these two.
Yeah.
Money you make from people. And so a career is not something that God even created in the first place. It's an illusion that somebody came up with this idea in order to enslave himself for 50 years. So it's not really there. It doesn't exist. He made it up. Every day that he tells himself, I have to do this for my career, he's just serving an idol that he himself created. It doesn't exist in any other world. And so a career as in and of its own is an idea that we came up with to motivate somebody, to have him climb the ladder so we can use all of him until there's nothing left. When it comes to intellect was given to you by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no limit to your intellect. As soon as you're going to start trying to develop it, it will become more. And if you develop it even more, it will become even more. It will never stop. Just like you can go to the gym and build your muscles. Or you can go train and learn other things. The body has so much intelligence, it's ready to learn whatever you're going to teach it. And the fact that people think that at such an early age in life like we have now, that the intellect stops growing is just wrong. It never stops developing and evolving. And we have to keep it stimulated so it continues to want to grow and to evolve. This is very important. This is why we're here. This is the vessel that we're talking about that creates our experience, is our intellect and our emotions. The more intelligence we have, the more we'll be able to receive the spiritual understanding that can give us guidance to what we're supposed to be doing to improve.
Why is it that some people seem to have more muzzle then?
We just discussed mazel. Mazel is something that you're born with, meaning that you have a development that's unique to you, and you have strengths and weaknesses where you have more and less capacity for different things based on your organs than other people. And then as you go through life, your environment causes you to become even more specialized with what you know and what you can do. But what the environment caused, you can mostly learn. You can outlearn it. You can become bigger than that. But what nature provided, we have to learn to live with, to create a lifestyle for ourselves where we really enhance our strong parts and we don't suffer too much from our weak parts. And in a perfect environment, there wouldn't be an issue like this. It would be very easily avoidable that people should be able to cover their weak areas. But when everybody is by himself and everybody is like an island of information, then people's weaknesses become very pronounced.
Mishkan, it seems a little bit very esoteric. I don't know what the right word to use is, but it seems a bit weird. You've got this all-powerful God who created the world, and he tells us to build this little, like, I don't know, box so that we can dwell in it.
Right.
So
obviously that's not what we're talking about.
Right, but my question is like, what's really going on? Because God doesn't need a box.
So we've been explaining this. Inside of you, there's a potential that we want to tell you about. And the best way to demonstrate it, according to the experts, is with this Mishkan, the way that it was built. With all the details. All of that, yeah, because you have in you things that are called gold, and things that are called silver, and things that are called copper. It's all in you. Everything exists in you. And when you'll understand the correlation between those two units, the Mishkan and the way that it's described, and you, the way that you actually are, then you will perceive why it's so important that this needs to be communicated in this way. And not only was it important, but it actually created a reality where people can coexist around this reality for a very long time. So it's something that's more real than the things that we're used to.